Welcome back to the Move podcast. This is an interesting fall season here. We're combining a lot of races, including the Giro d'Italia, which is still in progress, and Gent-Wevelgem, which we're going to touch on today, which just wrapped up. But I'm JB Hager. Lance is out today. His son's in a hockey tournament, and I guess if it ran over, that's a good thing. Maybe they're still playing. So he's going to sit this one out today. And George is joining us from Greenville. And I want to hear about your trip in 1 second. And then, of course, Johan Bruneel is in his home just outside Madrid. And I want to tell you where I am. This is kind of interesting. Your story is going to be a lot more interesting, George, but I'm in a cabin, as you can kind of tell, a little bit of a different background, just north of San Antonio on a lake called Canyon Lake. And my daughter and I have been down here for a few days taking first responders wake surfing, getting them out on the water for mental health therapy, riding behind the boat. I know George has really taken up the sport and loving it. And a bunch of police officers, military, EMS, and it's been a really, really cool thing. But George, you've been jet setting around the world with Lance. Tell us a little bit about that trip.
Yeah, we had an amazing trip to Beirut at first. I had never been there. I was honestly a bit nervous about going, but just from the moment we were flying in, the beauty of that city was just shocking. And the trauma they've gone through over the last few months, over the history of the city, but especially in the last 2 months with half of the city being blown away with the explosion. It was just incredible to see the resilience of the people and, how much they love their city and how much they want to do whatever it takes to get it back to where it was. And I was just truly amazed by the experience, and I would highly recommend going to visit there and or donating to helping rebuild the city.
Very, very cool. Yeah.
We went to Dubai to do some more rides. We rode with a friend of Johan's, met a lot of really cool people. I've never been there as well, and just obviously completely different setup. It's sort of like the Vegas of the Middle East, but it was also very incredible to see. They built an amazing 50-kilometer bike path in the middle of the desert right outside of the city. It's incredible to see how big the sport of cycling is getting there, and I think it's just, it's just in the beginning stages of the growth there. Very, very cool to see how much people love cycling there.
Yeah, some of the shots on your socials of that bike path out in the desert is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden all over the world and we've all seen some amazing places on the bike, but that bike path, riding it at sunset, was unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at OURA Ring. And, George, I know you've been wearing it and you had a very bad night's sleep last night. I, on the other hand, had a 85 score, which is excellent.
I'm jealous.
Sleep time, 7.5 hours. And, 2 hours and 18 minutes of deep sleep. That's really good for me. So happy about that. This is what happens when
you have a couple of vodkas and a couple glasses of wine. Not good.
But that's what's really remarkable about it. Now that I've been wearing it for a couple months, you can sit there and go, okay, my numbers are off. What did I do or not do? And it's a real good indicator too when you're a little bit overtrained too. You can plug in your workouts and tell them how long it was, what you did. For example, cycling either moderate or heavy for 2.5 hours, something like that. And then if you see your score starting to dip, you can, or you're a really high resting heart rate, it's a good indication to take it a little easy for a day or two and you bounce right back. Anyway, highly recommend it. Check it out, auraring.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at PowerDot. This is a really cool thing that is, as Lance always says, the size of a cheeseburger, which is always a funny way to compare it. But it is easy to carry with you. I carry it everywhere, and you've got your little devices in here. You hook it up, take your pads, which you can get replacement pads easily from PowerDot, and hook it up and get some recovery, some repair on your body when you're really beat up, muscle spasms, which I've been having some in my leg lately. Just hook it up, run a session, And, a day or two, you're like, wow, it's like you got an extensive massage done on it, and it really gets you working really, really well. Now, the offer for our listeners is 20% off with the code THEMOVE at checkout. And you can pick this up, start carrying it with you, use it to recover muscles, relieve pain, rehab from injuries, and save yourself 20%. At checkout, just use the code THEMOVE, all caps, THEMOVE, at PowerDot.com. So anyway, let's jump into the Giro first. It is so mind-boggling to sit there and watch two races at the same time that are ending within 15, 20 minutes of each other. It's a lot of work. But let's start with the Giro today. We've got
so since the last time we spoke, I guess we touched on the first two stages, right? There was a prologue and the first stage. Since then, we're now today was stage 8 or 9, I guess. Stage 9. So since then, the winner of the prologue, Filippo Ganna, has won another stage with a decent climb in it. So he obviously has shown that he has huge potential over here. We all saw Filippo Ganna as this big, tall, powerful guy, specialist time trialist, and after his stage win, some people have started with the idea or the debate of, okay, can this guy transform into a big stage racer type Miguel Indurain, because the guy is really tall. He's taller than you, George. He's massive, and the question is, can this guy transform into a stage racer? What do you think, George?
I mean, the way he time trials is obviously incredibly impressive, and I think so. That means he's got the engine to be able to produce the sustained watts that you need to even on a climb. I don't know. I haven't seen him perform on these big climbs, or I haven't followed him close enough to see how well he's climbing. But I think there's something to it for sure. If he decides to specialize in that, we saw a lot of these guys from the pursuit on the track, just being these 4-kilometer specialists, and now Tour de France winners. So I don't see any reason why he can't transform his skills into a GC rider as well.
Yeah, well, he rode Thomas de Gent and the Colombian rider Rubio off his wheel on this climb. It was not a super steep climb, but obviously there's something there. Now the question is it really worth it, right? Because as we all know, time trials are more and more scarce in big tours. Before there was probably two long time trials of 50 kilometers or more. So that's obviously something to think about. But yeah, amazing stage when he's today. He actually, because since that second stage when he was actually in the King of the Mountains jersey in the Tour of Italy, he lost it today. But so yeah, that was an amazing win. Then Arnaud Demar. Since we last spoke with everybody, 3 stage wins and 3. I mean, really no contest. The fastest rider by far in this Giro up till now. Sagan has tried. He came close once, and then the other time he was second again. But really not no contest. And the third time at Demar won, it was like, yeah, I thought it was like a breakaway from all the other sprinters.
Yeah, it's wild. So, these guys like Sagan and some of the best sprinters in the world just hanging on to his wheel for dear life. Mm-hmm. They're not even thinking about coming out of the slipstream and go around him. They're just like, okay, I'm happy with second.
Yeah. 15th win of the season, and considering the little amount of races we've had this year, that's incredible.
It really is. Also, I mean, think about Française des Jeux, which is sort of a disaster tour for them. No stage wins, and now just coming out firing at the Giro. I think that's a great thing for the team, and to continue to get successes in such a big race.
Yeah. So
I think you bring up an interesting point. A team that didn't have results at the Tour. We're also seeing a lot of Ineos and EF education first. It's like these are teams that are are really hitting their stride.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, since Ineos, I mean, I have to say, I mean, they're able to respond. The situation changes. Once they lost Bernal in the tour, they were all focused on Bernal. So then he went away, and they could turn it around with some really aggressive rides, and finally a really nice stage win with Kwiatkowski and Carapaz. And here it's a bit of the same, So they lose. I mean, since we last spoke, Geraint Thomas pulled pre-race favorite, the big favorite, pulled out of the race after his crash on the third stage. Finished the stage with a broken pelvis, by the way, which is incredible. Riding up the Etna, which is a 20-kilometer climb. So he's out, and Ineos could turn it around, and they're really present in the breakaways. Today they came really close with Castroviejo. And then another guy we lost since we last spoke is Simon Yates. Simon Yates didn't start yesterday. He tested positive for COVID, which is obviously a scary thing for him, for his team, and for the Giro, I guess, because this is the first time that cycling has to deal with something like this. I read an interview of their team doctor, and they said they can't understand, because they did everything perfect, and he thought their bubble was perfect, and on top of that, nobody else of the team has been infected. All their tests were negative, so it's obviously I think we are still discovering how COVID reacts and how it behaves. And
do you know if he was even showing any symptoms at all?
Well, I would think he was obviously off form. He was not this was his big goal. He had worked towards it. His team is riding really well, and he was not able to be there at the moment that he had to be there, both on the Etna and then another climb. He was in trouble. So I would think that it was already there for a while.
I think he was showing mild symptoms, and that's why he got tested, because they're not being tested unless they either show mild symptoms or they're at the rest day, which is coming tomorrow, which hopefully we don't see much more positive testing. But like you said, I mean, he was riding people off his wheel at Tirreno Adriatico. He was a clear favorite. And then the first climb, the first major test of the Giro, 2 days in or 3 days in, whatever it was, he wasn't able to follow. So I think that was the first sign of, something's off.
Yeah, and he was complaining about a mild headache. So that's why finally they got the test. And it is, I mean, I hope, that tomorrow we have good news. Now, what we need to say, though, the Giro has another type of protocol. We all, during the tour, we talked about the Tour de France had established, or actually the Ministry of Health of France had established that, if there were 2 members of a team positive, then the team had to pull out. The Giro has already said that they're following a different protocol. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not if there's 2 riders positive of the same team or 2 members, a rider and a staff member, the team doesn't have to go home. So, yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for tomorrow. So Simon Yates pulled out, which basically leaves it up to it's Nibali and Fuglsang, with maybe a guy like Kruijswijk. Kruijswijk is up there, all the time. So it's really, I mean, those were 2 big favorites, Thomas and Simon Yates. So it's a bit of a strange race, and in the meantime, we have this young Portuguese rider from the Koenig Quickstep who was second in the first time trial, João Almeida, young rider, super young rider, who's now 7 days in pink, which is incredible. Yeah, I personally think that it's maybe going to be, he's obviously still very young, and today he showed a little bit of weakness, so he lost a little bit of time. So I wouldn't say he's a favorite to win. This all happens to him, and he's just taking it day by day. But obviously, we all saw already in the past that this is a big talent. I think he was second in Tour of Utah. Was it last year or the year before? And then he passed on to the Koenig Quickstep. So I mean, incredible ride for him. I mean, other than that, it's Nibali, Fuglsang, Kelderman, and Kruijswijk. That's it. I don't see anybody else right now who could win the Giro.
Yeah, and today we saw a very, very strong Kelderman. He was one of the only guys that can make a difference in that final kilometer, which apparently was 12%. So super steep, hard finish. Nibali was on the limit. He lost a little bit of time. Fuglsang was probably the second strongest GC favorite. So we're starting, like you said, we're starting to see the battle of the favorites emerge, and it's gonna be interesting when they hit the final 9 days of the Giro, which apparently are just unbelievably hard.
Yeah. I mean, I fear a little bit that it's. I mean, if you start to see the tiredness of the peloton now already, and seeing how that last week is, it's. We're gonna see bodies everywhere.
Well, like you said, the tiredness of the peloton when yesterday. When Dowsett won, I mean, it was an awesome win for Israeli Cycling Academy. For him, you saw how emotional he was. He's a great guy. I think there was not one cycling fan in the world that was not happy to see him win and to see this new upstart team win a stage in the Giro. But you saw the peloton behind it. You really see that in the stage of the Giro or any Grand Tour for that matter, where they're just kind of wall to wall and just saying, "Okay, thank God there's a breakaway. We can ride in easy. It's a hard circuit. Nobody attack. Let's just ride in easy," because everybody is so exhausted. And looking, forward to how hard the rest of this Giro is going to be. Yeah,
let's not forget. Yesterday was day 8 only, and I mean, what's to come. One thing we missed. One thing we missed is something that has been going on for a few days now is the rivalry between Nibali and Fuglsang, and Trek Segafredo and Astana. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before. Anyway, so. Trek Segafredo is really riding this Giro as, obviously they have Nibali won this race twice. He's, in my opinion, he's the big favorite, although he's, in the last part of his career. But, he's won the Giro, he won the Tour, he's won the Vuelta. There's nobody of his category in the race. But so anyway, so they behave like they take control of the race whenever they need to. So that includes every time there's a climb, no matter if it's a hard climb or they go to the front, they make sure that they have the whole team in the front and they take control of the downhill, which, sometimes things can happen on the downhill, and especially when it's wet. So yesterday, Trek Segafredo they were already setting the pace on the last part of the climb, and Fuglsang had a mechanical, and they just, they didn't care. They just went over and they just drilled it down. And it took quite a little bit, at some point, Tang was 1.5 minutes down.
Oh.
So, afterwards, I've heard that there were some words. I don't know if it was personally, but obviously in the press, there's been some words between them. And so Fuglsang said, pay attention next time you stop for a pee.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
there's a lot of eye for an eye in cycling, isn't there? Oh, you did that one thing, we might strike back at one time or another, right?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult one, because in this case, I think Trek Segafredo and Nibali, we say, okay, we were already on the front. We were already making sure that we had the whole team up front, and we wanted to go in the downhill. But, it was a crucial point where they absolutely had to be in the front. So once they heard that Fuglsang had a mechanical, they should have, they could stay in the front, but they didn't have to go down like crazy. That's the thing.
There's definitely you don't want those kind of wars. I mean, we had it in our days as well with Onse. They'd stop before climbs and change to their climbing bikes, and you'd be like, okay, don't make it obvious, but lift the pace just a little bit to make them suffer to come back. So,
but that's what
you don't have.
That's different, George. That's different because they know. So I remember they changed bikes because they had this theory, of the small wheels on the climbing bikes. They were riding 26-inch wheels on climbing bikes, and so obviously that's something that you have to assume. If it's not because of bad luck, that you make the decision to make a bike change. So there's no reason why then the race should stop, right? It's different if there's a crash or if there's a mechanical. That's different. But anyway, I remember say, okay, just a little bit faster so that they, not to drop them, but to make it, that they're a little bit having difficulties to come back. And, those are things that happen. A big tour is one on uphills, on downhills, on flats, with crosswinds everywhere, right?
It's interesting you say there, there was an exchange of words, and then of course, the media hypes that stuff. That's what they do, right? I guess that's what I'm about to do. But but do you guys recall one of your uglier exchanges of words with a rider or a team, director to director, rider to rider, after something went down? Do you remember something very vividly?
Well, George, yeah. I think typically, George, in the bunch, it's when there's a massive natural break and a guy attacks, right?
Yeah. Well, that, and also, I mean, the interesting thing, there's guys that, like, when they're on the other team, when they're on the opposite rival team, they could be like your most hated person in the peloton, but that usually means that they're a really good teammate. Like, for instance, when Michael Schar was on Astana, I hated him. We'd always rub into each other. He wouldn't give an inch. His elbows out. Like, this guy is such an asshole. The best teammate in the world, though. When we became teammates in BNC, like, you don't want somebody other than him on your team, because he will go to the line for you. He will move people out of the way. Like, he's the best team in the world. But if you're on another team, obviously you're going to have run-ins with him. Rick Verbrugge, him and I, we used to always have run-ins, like full-on arguments in the peloton. Hated each other. Then he became my director at BMC. Nicest guy, like, knows cycling, as you know, Johan, right? Like, he knows cycling really, really well, and a great guy. But when you're not on the same team, it's a different story. This sport is so cutthroat, and the emotions and the adrenaline is so high in the middle of a race, is that you're going to have runs with other people on other teams all the time.
Yeah. But anyway,
don't make fun of me. My mom brought me.
Oh, look at
my coffee cup.
Look at that. Oh. Yeah. So anyway, nice win of Alex Dowsett. I think there was nobody in cycling who wasn't happy for him, to win in that way. And today, the stage of today was another one of those, breakaway, 8 riders, 8 different teams, 8 different nationalities. And finally, 2 riders fought it out. Castroviejo was probably one of the best teammates in the world right now. So, I was actually rooting for him, because I think he would have deserved, after having really killed himself in the Tour, was extremely strong in the Tour. Then at the end, at the last moment, they say, okay, now you have to do the Giro because Geraint Thomas wants you to be there. Then Geraint falls, crashes, gets out, and now he's up there and, had the opportunity to win. And he just, met a younger guy, Ruben Guerreiro, a young rider, very talented rider, quite explosive finish, and he won it. So, what a Giro for Portugal. A Portuguese stage win and a Portuguese rider, young rider, 7 days in pink already. That's been a long time that happened, and since Acácio da Silva was the last Portuguese leader in the Giro.
Yeah, I agree with you, Johan. I mean, you got to feel for Castroviejo today. I mean, everything he did for the team at the Tour de France, now at the Giro, and still up there, still making the hard breakaways, which, by the way, today must have been a really hard break where you saw the guys that are on guys. I was really happy to see my good buddy Larry Warbasia in the breakaway as well. I was hoping he could have made it with the final selection, but it was good to see him up there. And when they were coming close to the end, I was definitely pulling for Castroviejo because of the last month that he's had, but unfortunately he couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, second stage win for EF, that's also quite the accomplishment. After they had a reasonable tour. They won one stage, and they had Rigoberto Urán. Was he top 10 finally? Top 10, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, they're obviously showing their designer jerseys quite a bit.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of mileage out of that still. Before we jump into today's Gent-Wevelgem, I'm probably not pronouncing that as perfectly as Johan will. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm going to tell you about a couple of our partners that help make all this possible. The Pros Closet. Now, when you think about it, your bikes today are, sometimes worth more than your car. A lot of people have that. And, so you want to vet those things out. And if you want to buy a used bike, why not buy one from the Pros Closet where it's been inspected on a 141 point inspection and refurb process. So it's going out the door as perfectly as possible. They currently have over 700 bikes from 80 different brands, road bikes, mountain bikes, cross bikes, gravel, e-bikes. They've got it all. It's really worth checking out, knowing that it's vetted, a really good bike that you can get into, coming with a 12-month warranty on the carbon frame and an 18-month buyback guarantee. The Pros Closets quickly become the standard and the trusted source, just like you would eBay or Amazon. The Pros Closet is where everyone's going to get their bikes. In fact, you can get 20 and 21 new bikes 10% off. All you got to do is use the code to get that discount. Go check it out, theproscloset.com/TheMove. And you just need to use the code MOVE10 at checkout to get that discount. Today's show also brought to you by LMNT. I'm going to show you this here real quick. This is a little packet that I throw a few of these in my jersey when I go out on a ride, and I've been passing them out to friends and saying, what do you think? Give this a try. Dump this little powder in the water before we take off or at a convenience store stop. And they've really been loving it. It's got the sodium that gets you through those hot Texas days. It's got potassium, magnesium, which help with your recovery. Staying hydrated is everything. And this has quickly become all my friends' favorites. They love it because you get in cycling. Sometimes you get a little tired of the over the top sugary sweet stuff. This it's got a real nice salty taste to it that actually makes me drink more, which is a good thing with staying hydrated. But you can grab some of these packets, throw them in your jersey like I do. And once you start using it, we all got hooked on them during the tour. I think that was one of the most popular things when we were all in Colorado. Everybody was grabbing these and using them every day. Head on over to drinklmnt.com/TheMove to get yours. All right, now we jump into, it's just crazy to think. Like I said, we were going back and forth between races. We're watching the Giro, trying to catch up on that. But before that, Gent-Wevelgem wrapped up today and proved to be very, very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're lucky to have an ex-winner of Gent-Wevelgem amongst us, George. What year did you win that one?
2002? Are you testing me, or No.
I don't remember.
Pretty sure it's 2002.
I do remember you didn't know if you had won because it was a photo finish with Leon Van Bon, right?
Yeah, photo finish, and I'm excited. I was super excited to throw on the TV today and watch Gent-Wevelgem. It's become harder and harder to race. I think the distance is longer now. Mm-hmm. They've added on another climb or two, and like you mentioned in our pre-show, the dirt roads now that are in there as well. Boch, thank you. It was 2001, not 2002, but thank you, Dave, for the reminder. But it's just such a hard race. The roads are so small. There's wind. It's so complex that it's really only the strong survive. Like you saw today, the final selection was just the titans of the classic, so to speak. And it's just super, in my opinion, the most exciting racing you can have and the hardest racing you can do.
Yeah, that together with Flanders, it's the same type of racing. And it's true, through the years they made it harder and harder. I remember back in when I started racing, I remember watching it on TV, and there's been some like half bunch sprints sometimes, like 30, 40 riders together. That doesn't happen anymore these days. But I think what was really interesting today to see was the long-awaited direct match against Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel. They're the archie rivals since young. They've been right. I have this fly here. I don't. The arch rivals in the mountain bike, in the cyclocross, and now they are basically the best two riders in the bunch on the road. And today was quite the show, I think, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you saw them. You get to the no matter how hard the race is, what you have before, whether it's wind or rain. Like today, they had a bit of everything. But you get to the Montenberg, the final time when you know you're going up to Kemmelberg, and you right there, you know if you have the legs or not. The directors know exactly who you need to follow. It's just you can basically predict what's going to happen. And sure enough, those two guys, Van Aert and Van der Poel, went for it at the bottom and caught up to the breakaway. And they were clearly the strongest guys there, and ended up, basically negating themselves in the final.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they went up to Kemmelberg the last time was just full on power. Probably average 600-700 watts.
I would love to see that.
90 seconds. I
would love to see those numbers.
For sure.
So the last time they went up, I don't know if it's still if it was that way. So now they do 3 times the Kemmelberg. So they do the first 2 times they do the Kemmelberg from like the softer side, I would say, and they have eliminated the downhill where before there was always those.
Well.
Joining us.
Hey!
You can't just roll in.
Hey!
Go, bro.
Hey, did you guys miss me?
We were having a really uninterrupted, clean analysis of races.
Yeah.
And probably an informed recap of the races.
And we were pronouncing everything right. It was amazing.
Did you watch anything?
I did. I just watched Max's hockey game. It was not a good result for the Aspen Leafs. So,
okay.
But in terms of the bike races, I've been missing a lot.
We got to see it today, and it was some exciting racing that you missed.
Yeah.
But
No, we were just talking about Mathieu van der Poel and Van Aert, and how it's incredible that these 2 guys, that same generation, they started to more or less together, dominating cyclocross, and now they're dominating road cycling. Today was actually incredible. It was the last time on the Kemmelberg, it was these 2 guys in the race and the rest. And then at the end, that's the beauty of cycling. There was a nice 8 guys breakaway, and they finished 7th and 8th.
And that's
so much.
Yeah, that's a thing that I think would be interesting to get all of your opinions on. So everybody was hyping Van der Poel, Van Aert. They're, like you said, they were the strongest, and maybe this is one of those older school rules where experience paid off versus youth and power. Is that what happened? How did these guys screw it up tactically?
I think, honestly, watching the to the finish, knowing that you had those 2 guys in there, and also 6 or so guys that are also very strong, very fast. I could almost predict that those guys. Well, Johan did predict that Max was going to win, but it was almost going to be too obvious that they were going to rule each other out. They were not going to let each other go. There's no way that one guy would let the other one go. That would be the major mistake. So the other guys were just going to take advantage of that situation, and you saw that happen clearly in the last 1,500 meters.
Yeah. Well, I think already before that, I personally think that Wout van Aert I think he was the strongest of the 2. Van der Poel was responding quite easily, but was never in a position to attack. Van Aert was incredibly strong. But a race like Gent-Wevelgem with a flat run-in, if you're the strongest, you have a big chance to win when it's really hard in the final, when it's over those little climb. But with 20 kilometers to the finish, it's very difficult if you're the big favorite to win, because nobody wants to take you to the finish. And then on top of that, if you have these 2 strong guys who are watching each other, even less likely that one of both is going to win, right?
Well, Johan,
and how was Johan the other day? You mentioned just how you thought Van der Poel's team was surprisingly strong. Just sort of almost in a stealth, understated way. Did that come to fruition?
It did to some point. Both Van Aert had one teammate with him initially, and Van der Poel had another teammate with him. But the teammate of Van der Poel had a crash, and at that point it was about 30 kilometers to go when the big selection happened. And but no, the Van der Poel's team was strong. They had another guy covering the moves. I think the teams are worth each other. The team. It's going to be interesting for Flanders, though. Flanders is really, that's, there's still that extra element to it that, if you're really strong, you can basically ride everybody off your wheel, So, it's a pity. It's a pity that the Muur of Gerardsberg is not in the final, because that would be crazy. But, now we have the Quaremont and the Patersberg for next week. So, wow, it's going to be some watts left on those cobblestones.
And not only that, we have another 40 kilometers, which is a massive difference. That's what separates these World Tour one-day races, the iconic races, from races like today, for instance, is those extra 40 kilometers makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, but what I also really like about these guys, and especially Van der Poel, Van der Poel is so aggressive. He started to attack with 70 kilometers to go today. That's when the first time he went. And it's, wow, this guy has no fear. Even if, he just races. I spoke with Jean-Marc. You remember Jean-Marc, right? Jean-Marc van den Berg. He's now a mechanic on Van der Poel's team. And he explained, the strategy of the last stage there at the Bing Bank Tour, and he said, whatever they say from the car, the guy just races as he feels. He said, no, I feel good. It's course. It's course today. It's, today we race. And he just goes,
Wow. Well, I was just going to add in, George. I don't know. This probably just before you started doing these races for a living. All of these races back in the day. Well, obviously the monuments were always 250, 260 kilometers. But even Gent-Wevelgem, Flèche-Wallonne, all of they were also long. So they were having to do, not just the monuments on the weekends, but and then with the guys or the teams, and then the gals now. We'll fill in midweek these, sort of semi-classics, they now call them. But back in the day, those were also 250, 260. Imagine having to do weekend after weekend of, twice a week, hammering like that. Then throw in, of course, this isn't a weird year and we're not in the spring, but throw in the weather of the spring and woof.
Yeah. Another thing.
Yeah, I know this is probably what you were going to bring up. I know you guys wanted to you talked about how they've changed that course at Gent-Wevelgem over the years, and they've added these plug streets, these dirt sections quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I would love to get your thoughts on that. Do you like that? Do you like these changes to this race?
I personally, I know Lance has a different opinion on that, and George probably also. I'm not a fan of this, because, and especially for a race like Gent-Wevelgem, Gent-Wevelgem had the typical tradition of, okay, it was a fast race. It's possible to win as a strong guy, but also as a semi-sprinter. Why add these? These are not gravel roads. These are basically farmer roads, dirt roads, no gravel. So it's basically where the tractors are riding in between the fields, And so they added some before the first time, the Camelberg, and then between the first time and the second time, the Camelberg. And it's also, you can lose the race there because, it's not accessible for the team cars, or not as accessible. So I think my opinion is roads like this are for Paris-Roubaix or Tour of Flanders. There, you're going to get them. Right, but to add these gravel sections on every different on all different, or for Strade Bianche, for example, that's a typical race for that. But to add that the race as Gent-Wevelgem, I'm not a fan. Lance, I know you think differently.
No, you don't. No, because I was not a fan of that gravel section in the Tour. But I would be, and again, without having watched it. But just by hearing it being described, look, these are technical races that have, the Padestrad, all these, whatever these climbs, these super cobble climbs. Throw those in there. And by the way, we have a time in history of our sport where we need, there needs some change, not, change. I hate saying the word change, but there, something has to happen to spice these things up. So again, without having seen it, it sounds pretty dope to me. Mm-hmm. I was not a fan of that climb in the Tour. That there, I do think you have a specialized type of athlete and bucket tire. But you think Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel really care? I mean, that you could
Absolutely not. They loved it.
You could tell them we're going to go take a lap around the moon, and they would go, "All right, that's I'll do that." They don't care.
No, they loved it. They loved it.
I
But,
mean,
you know,
a race like Gent-Wevelgem already has, the roads are so tiny and there's constant amounts of corners that once you're getting into that, you know, the heat of the race, so to speak, you know, a gravel section or dirt section, like you said, here or there, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, but perhaps can add a bit of an excitement element to the race. I think it's a good thing.
no, okay. Well, I'm not in favor, but that's fine. We don't have to agree on it. We don't have to agree on it.
No,
one thing though.
We always defer to you, Johan. This is a fact, right? And
No, one thing though that I was really remarkable, George, you will have thought the same thing when you watched it, is to see this race, this kind of race, of spectators.
Yeah.
No, not a single person on the Camelberg. You know, no spectators on the small sections. That's you know. I mean, but I have to say though, you know, I mean, hats off to the organization, Flanders Classics. You know, the team of Wouter. You know Wouter, right?
yep.
So they own all those races. I mean, and also hats off to the Belgian fans, I think, you know, because I know they will all love to go to see the race. They all stayed at home, you know, and that's the reason why we could finally have this race. On the contrary, for example, Paris-Roubaix, we all know it's now cancelled, and from what I heard, you know, it's in a big part because of what has been seen during the Tour de France and the many spectators on the roads. So, but it was definitely very strange to see, very strange to see that race without spectators. Next week, Flanders is going to be the same thing. So,
Well, but Johan, just to go back to Paris-Roubaix, which of course is, you know, that's a real bummer for us race fans, and arguably the biggest one-day race of the year. I did have a conversation just a few days ago with Jan Lemonnier, and that was I don't even think it had been announced yet. So as we've talked about on the show before, so France uses this color-coded index for COVID, and you know, so green, yellow, red. You know, red obviously is a complete lockdown of those communities. Lille, where, you know, this area where Paris-Roubaix basically resides, is as he described it, is basically a horse category. It is like triple red, and so they had no choice. I mean, it was, and of course, the day that I just left France, I guess that was yesterday, they locked down the country again. So it's, you know, we're in another resurgence here. I don't know. I heard Italy was locked down. I don't know what's happening in Spain. Could that affect and impact the Tour of Spain? You know.
Yeah, we'll have to you know, take it by the day. You know, I think it's, you know, there's mixed messages also, because, you know, if you see today, for example, there was another race. We didn't talk about that race, and but, you know, there was Paris Tours today, and that happened. Right. Obviously, it's not. It leaves Paris. It goes into a different direction. But, you know, I mean, the virus doesn't look at borders. You know, the virus just goes.
The Tour de France riders right now are the fittest guys in the bunch, and they're the guys that are winning the hardest races. They're the guys that are winning the races that are coming down to, you know, a race of attrition. They're the guys that have the matches left at the end because they have the Tour de France fitness. I mean, we can't finish the show without talking about Mads' win today, where he just decided, you know what, I'm going to go all in here, 1,500 meters to go, bridge up to the four guys ahead of him on his own. I don't even think he looked back, took about a minute to recover, and then just smoked everybody in the sprint. It was a crazy and impressive way to win. And, you know, what a year he's had coming off of being a world champion last year. Condensed season, hasn't been able to race much in the World Championship jersey. But now look, he's a winner of the Gent-Wevelgem, which is a, you know, iconic race in our
and a rematch. A rematch of the sprint of the World Championships last year, which was also Pedersen against Matteo Trentin. Same thing.
Was that the first race that Trek has won this year? No, I mean, honestly, it's a serious question.
They've won quite some races already.
Yeah,
they're up there. You know, they're like fourth or fifth in the team ranking, in the world team ranking. So,
I knew that.
I know there's a name that Johan brought up on the last show we did that we should revisit and hold on to this. I'm so glad Lance is able to join us because we're going to talk about, Johan's going to tell us about an e-bike race that went down. Not making that up.
Mm-hmm.
But let's revisit.
The last show we talked about Tom Pidcock, right? Yeah, Tom Pidcock. So on the last show, we said, okay, this is a name to remember. Won the Giro d'Italia under 23. Then did the World Championships with the elite because there was no under 23 World Championships. Then he went into all of a sudden decided they're going to do some mountain bike racing. So he won 2 World Cup races mountain bike. And now he just took home 2 rainbow jerseys. For starters, he won the first ever World Championship e-mountain biking, which was a big participation. So he won that. He got a rainbow jersey with like a how would you say that, an electricity sign in the middle. And the day after, he won the World Championships mountain bike under 23. So he just, the guy just collects world championships jerseys. It's amazing.
Well, look, I think, first of all, I think that's a good idea. I think that as backwards as the UCI often is, and we talk about it a lot on here, I mean, I think they're crazy not to embrace where the industry is going, where the people are going, where are, by the way, and I'll just say this for the record, anybody on a bike is good with me. I'm not one of these Strava nerds that's, all worried about somebody on an e-bike that beats my time. I don't give a shit. What I know is that person might not have gone out and bought a bike, might not have been on a bike, might have been in their car. It's just another bike on the road. So let's just start with that. I love that. And so, and for those in the industry, you'll know that this has been a huge driver of growth for the cycling and worldwide. And so it's right for the UCI to embrace that. I'm just curious on how that works. I mean, I guess I've never really ridden an e-bike other than around the block. Somebody has one and it's fun to rip around on. But what's the strategy? Is it a conservation thing? Or are you trying to figure out, I've only got so much battery life, so I know I'm going to have to pedal some of the times. Some of the times I can use the motor. I mean, because there has to be some sort of then it almost gets into car racing where you're trying to budget your tires and budget your fuel and budget the engine, budget all these things. Surely it has to be something like that, but I don't know how they do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talked about that before, no? So obviously there's a limit on the amount of power you can have, and then it's I guess it's true. It's going to be like car racing. I think this is obviously a race which is in this industry driven. Big brands for this and made an agreement with UCI to have this. I think it's really good. But I think that the racing is completely different. Obviously, skills are going to be very, very important. It's very technical. You can go a lot faster in the downhills with the bigger tires and more weight. But I think a competition is now going to start also between the brands, to have the lightest possible e-bike, racing bike. It's like Formula One a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, think about, I didn't see it. I'm actually very interested to try to pull up and watch it. But if you're getting a 200 watt sort of, push from your bike, you still got to do the rest of the wattage. So the starts can be really important. Like you said, Johan, the handling is going to be ultra important because you're going faster. You're getting more momentum. So I'm actually quite intrigued to see how this race played out.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me that they're doing, mountain racing when on a lot of our local trails, the e-bikes are not allowed. I'd love your thoughts on that. I get the sense it doesn't bother you, whatever gets you on 2 wheels. But
no, okay. Now I'm going to have to back up a little bit. I think. Look, I think that whether it's, so now we're talking about mountain biking. So whether it's IMBA or all the subsidiaries of IMBA that are the NGO of mountain biking and sort of police trail construction, trail maintenance, et cetera, which is also, worth noting. IMBA is led by the great Dave Weens, who's just an amazing guy. Look, we got to find a balance, okay? Because you just keep in mind, and I think that you're just going to have this. You're going to have certain trails that they're allowed, and certain trails that they're not. And the argument against, forget times and people being all mad about somebody beating their time, but if you have somebody new to mountain biking and they get a new e-bike and the bike weighs 50 pounds and they can get up at the top of, if you're an Aspen, you can get up at the top of Buttermilk and come down Bandit Trail, cut over to Lower Government. I mean, these are technical trails. And then throw in the trails that are two-way. So now you have a true novice coming down a hill that is very technical on a 50-pound missile. We're just asking for trouble there. So, and I'm not being critical, but I'm just encouraging IMBA or whoever it is underneath them. We're just going to have to come up with a creative solution for how you prevent accidents happening. I just don't want to. I mean, look, when stuff is technical and you're new to it and you're on a heavy bike, accidents are going to happen. And if it's somebody's coming up at a slow rate of speed, you just wouldn't head on. So we got to figure out a way to sort of section off areas where you're like, okay, this is for e-bikes or this is for all bikes. And if you're on a regular bike, heads up. If you're going uphill, somebody may be screaming downhill that doesn't know where the rear brake is. And again, I'm not being critical. It's just I think there's this period here where we're going to have to get beamed up and make sure that we balance all this and just be real clear.
All right. E-recumbents, the next craze. I'm calling it.
I'm sure they're already out there.
All right.
Lance, we started the show with sort of my brief summary here about our trip. It might be fun for our listeners to hear what you thought about our trip. And then we'll talk about, I guess the next time we do a show is next weekend for Flanders. So why don't you tell our listeners what you thought about our trip?
Well, we had an amazing trip. I will say for the listener who maybe didn't hear it or wasn't on the trip, I was made fun of the entire time, especially by George. We've gotten to this place in time and in history and with the move where it's now accepted. George is now the alpha dog. I'm just a lay down. I mean, it was 8 or 9 days of just taking endless punishment from this guy. And by the way, y'all, I am totally cool with that. But no, it was incredible. I mean, we talked to everybody. We were actually in Beirut. We had done the bike for Beirut there. The devastation really left us all speechless. I think for us, the cool thing, and this was after we wrapped the show, just for days and days, we kept hearing from people, not just in Beirut and not just in Lebanon, but from all over the world, that was the first moment where they saw some glimmer of hope. They saw some people outside. They saw some smiles and some singing and some dancing. And so that just, I'm getting chills talking about it. And then we headed down to Dubai, to the UAE, which of course is a series of states that make up one big country. I've never been to that part of the world. Just FYI, it's the hottest place that I've ever been in my entire life. But they sponsor a team that just won the Tour de France, so it was cool to be there. They wanted to throw a little bike party in recognition of that. So these people down there built this bike track. It wasn't enough to build roads that you can go ride on, that cars drive on. They built a series of loops out in the desert that total about 112 miles. So we were out there. You probably saw it on socials. We were out with a large group. They had to cut it back due to COVID. They had a day's notice. And they had 600 people sign up.
Whoa. They
cut it back to 150. But it was awesome. And, some cool stuff. We went out and Sheikh Sultan took us out and falcon hunting, which when I first heard we were going to go falcon hunting, I was like, this just doesn't sound like a good idea. Okay, I got enough problems. I'm not going to go. First of all, I've never shot anything in my life. Okay. I'm not going to, and I look up falcon. I'm like, wait, not the Atlanta Falcons. I see this bird. I'm like, there's no way anybody shoots that bird. And then they're like, no, you idiot. The bird actually goes out and hunts other birds. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty dope. And so then we go out, and Sheikh Sultan is a sweet guy. We actually went on a ride. Guy was super strong. And we meet his birds. And he named, George, I don't know if you said this or not, but I said, do you name these birds? And he's like, yeah, we named them all. And by the way, the girl birds are by far the best. They don't even use boy falcons. Boy falcons suck. So they've got this girl falcon that's a year-old, has not been named. It's his favorite falcon. I said, what's this falcon's name? He said, I haven't named it yet. And he looks around and he says, I'm going to name it Armstrong. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, Armstrong. So I have a falcon named after me. Okay, so this was worth all the ridicule and grief I got for a week from George, the new alpha dog. But so now I have a falcon. George doesn't have a falcon, by the way. But it was super cool. And then we sent George home. He was misbehaving. And then we cruised up to France, which I had 2 or 3 nights in France before heading home. But it was a trip of a lifetime. And big shout out to our host, Tom Barrick, incredible, and just, see new places and also see places with the bike was so integral and so important. Like this sport is, we're talking about Gent-Wevelgem and Tour of Italy. These are iconic races in iconic cycling countries. They'll be here forever, but this sport is truly globalizing, which can only, in the end, can only be a good thing.
It's interesting you talk about it, because in our minds, just the passive cycling fan, we think you guys have seen and appreciated every part of the world. But yet, as you saw it all through your 20s and 30s, you were working. You were seeing hotel rooms and then racing. You weren't seeing these countries like you are now in retirement.
No, and only on the internet, basically. I mean, when you think about it, you go look online, you see all these impressive buildings and the amount of infrastructure they've invested there. You cannot believe it until you see it. I'm like, wait, are there people in those buildings? Because there are buildings everywhere. And I mean, it's this is in 50 or 60 years. It's unbelievable what they've done. And most importantly, they're the sweetest people. It's not, I think as Americans, we get so caught up, obviously, predominantly Muslim. We get so caught up in this country between us and them and Christianity and the Muslim religion and Islam and the Arab world. Okay. This is a different part of the world, right? These people are totally peaceful. They love America. They were unbelievably kind and gracious and hospitable to us. I mean, and by the way, they got like water parks and golf courses. I said, shit, I'm gonna bring the family back. I told the Sheikh, I said, Sheikh, I'm coming back. I did not say that. You're not allowed to say that. But George, did you talk about that dinner we had where we had to eat with our hands?
I did not. No,
this is unbelievable. We had a traditional dinner in the desert, and they lay out these carpets, and then they put down these big silver heater things with rice and lamb, and they pour this yogurt on there. And I'm like looking around going, where's the plates and silverware? Well, they never show up. And then you see these guys, they're just digging in. I'm like, oh no. I got to eat with my hands. I was eating with my hand. George, we got video of George eating with his hands. Like, he thought he was, thought he was in Palm Beach or something. They were going to be feeding him. It was nuts.
So the food was amazing. What an incredible setting to be able to eat on the sand, on the carpet. It was truly an incredible experience.
All right.
Next week, Flanders predictions.
I got my boy Soren. My pick.
Man, that's. I love that pick, George. That's a gutsy pick. I don't know. That's a long shot. And I like it. I mean, I just keep hoping Gwen shows up, but that's a good pick. I'm not betting against Mathieu van der Poel. He's just come too close too many times. I'd love to get more insight from Jean-Marc about just the way this guy, thinks and clicks. But my sense is you let him get close a couple times, I wouldn't give him a third. I wouldn't bet against that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to pick somebody else then. So, I'll go for Wout van Aert.
No, shocking.
After what I've seen today, he's still on great form. Took some time off after the World Championships, but yeah, he has some huge power, big power.
Cool.
Right.
All right. That wraps it up for this week of multiple races going on. We'll be back next week. Because we're going to touch on this, the next week of the Giro as well. Next weekend. But send your questions or comments to TheMove@wedo.team.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for letting me helicopter in here, guys.
Anytime.
Anytime.
You guys. Ciao.